Today, we are talking all about sales, but we're not just talking one-on-one. We are bringing awesome sales coach Ryann Dowdy into the mix today because Ryann is a sales master. And so when I connected with Ryann, I knew I had to get her on my YouTube channel here to talk to the community about sales, and not just about sales and the process of sales, but how we can really apply different tips and strategies and hacks and sales processes to our world as it is today. Because let's be real, as of this video is 2020 and we are in a heap right now, Ryann, right?
Yes, we are.
We're going through a process right now, and we get to talk about the pivots, the new opportunities, and what's possible even when we're going through crisis, pandemic, whatever you want to call this. So hi, Ryann. Thank you for being here today.
Hi, Jen. I am very excited to be here.
Yeah, you're my second interview on this YouTube channel. So I'm really excited to be bringing people into the mix, because I do believe sometimes, like, I can say things over and over again, but sometimes it's just someone else may say it different, and then the light bulb comes on, and I'm all about creating those light bulb moments for people. So tell us a little bit just about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually spent 15 years in the corporate world in sales. So I started selling radio advertising like directly out of college. Spent years selling advertising and marketing. And then eventually, my career escalated and I got to travel the country and train sales reps. Got really big into the startup space. Growing sales orgs, running different, channels of sales, and had a lot of fun. And like a lot of people, had a kid, and it just kind of changed my priorities and changed where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And I was always a commission salesperson, right? I never really saw the need to start a business, right? Because I was like, well, I'm in control of my income here. I kind of have the best of both worlds. Somebody else bears the risk, and I get the reward as long as I continue to go sell things. Yeah. But once my son was born, I knew that I didn't just want the paycheck. I wanted the freedom. I wanted time freedom, location freedom. I wanted to not to stay home. My kiddos, both are, actually my husband stays home with my kids, which is super fun. My son goes to preschool, but for me, it was really about being able to say, you know what, I don't want to work on Fridays in the summer, or you know what, I want to be able to go pick my kid up from preschool on occasion. And so really wanted to create a life around our family values instead of just my career. So here we are.
Yeah. And that's so awesome. And I think it's such a luxury and a gift that we have to be able to do that. And definitely there's some things that get to be put in place when it comes to mindset and your approach, and really coming from a place of possibility, being someone that I also used to be at a day job, and I earned commissions. And it's so interesting how when you're in that world, like, you don't really feel worried about getting commissions. But then if you all of a sudden, I don't know if this was you, but when you go off on your own, it's like, oh gosh, I gotta really earn commissions and figure out how to do this thing. Like, it's so different.
Yeah. It was very different. I mean, I sold a lot of things, like literally millions and millions of dollars of advertising and marketing over the years, and really actually stumbled a lot, Jen, in the beginning, and trying to sell myself and trying to detach from that feeling of like a no, feeling personal and all that, which I never did in the corporate space, right? Because I was like, hey, you weren't saying no to me. You were just saying no to whatever product I was selling.
No emotion.
Right. So now when somebody says no to me, like it feels like me. And so I had to work really hard on protecting my mind of feeling, again, it's not me personally, right? It's just what I'm offering right now or what's going on in their world. So it was a process for sure.
So what were some of the things that you did to detach yourself from, I think it's safe to say we want to detach ourselves from the outcome. We hear that all the time. Like, some people say go for no, other people say go for yes. Like, there's all these different things, but ultimately, what are some of those, do you have anything you can share as far as what supported you with detaching emotionally from the outcome?
Absolutely. Well, I realized, if a lot of it was mindset work, it was working with a coach, it was getting that support, but it was understanding that it is unreasonable to believe that everybody will be a yes, right? Like, it is unreasonable to believe that I'm everybody's cup of tea. It is unreasonable to believe that every single person that I meet or talk to or pitch my services to has that all the stars have aligned for that to make sense for both of us. And so I think maybe that was it, Jen, is realizing that, I think the statistics are at any given time, only about 3 to 5% of the people in your sphere are in the position, ready to buy, have the finances, have the need, and are really ready to pull the trigger. So then once I kind of looked at the numbers, I was like, yeah, well, it's just unrealistic to think that you're going to get all yeses. And sometimes no means not right now. Sometimes no means I don't like you. And that's okay. Like that's part of the deal. Like we want to work. That's why we want to work for ourselves, is because we want to work with people that we feel aligned with and people that we're connected with and people we can get a really great result. So instead of thinking that the no's were personal, the no's were just like, this is just not a fit, and that's okay. And we still bless them and love them and want them to be successful. So I think it was just kind of letting my ego get out of the way and really, realizing that almost always no says exponentially more about the other person than about me. And I don't want somebody who isn't going to get what I offer to say yes to me. That doesn't feel any more aligned either. So it was a lot of mindset work to get there.
What do you have to, also clarity, right? I think you can increase your conversions of who's enrolling when you're clear on who you're speaking to, because if you're you can have a lot of conversations, but if it's with randos or people that you wouldn't really be able to bless or serve with what you offer, then you're going to hear a lot more no's. So was it challenging for you to really hone in on like your lane of audience or people that you knew you could support? How did you go about defining that?
Yeah, it took me a little while to kind of figure out who my people were. So when I decided that I was going to take my gift of sales and that's what I was going to, start a business around, there were several different people I thought that I would be serving, Jen, one being like bigger businesses, like actually training sales teams in the corporate world was one. And then I thought I would be working with, entrepreneurs that were kind of farther along in their journey, selling higher ticket programs and offers. And what I learned was, as a new entrepreneur, I inadvertently built a community of new entrepreneurs. But I learned that by talking to people, by getting on the phone with people and being like, okay, I hear the questions that they're asking me. I hear the situations that they have. And then, okay, how can I serve those people? Right. So I actually kind of built a community. I kind of did it backwards than most marketers would have liked me to do. I built a community and then started talking to those people and was like, no, I'm talking over their head right now. Right. Like these people aren't worried about, revenue projections and, 5-figure months. These people are like, how do I get my first client? Right? How do I build a network of people? How do I start a conversation with a stranger? How do I even go out and find these people? Right. And so it was kind of inadvertent that I learned that that's who my people were. And then I built a program to support and serve them.
Yeah, but I actually think you built it right. Like, because a lot of times, like, think of the network marketing space or the affiliate marketing space. People come in, like, I came into this world through network marketing, but I came in through like a specific product. And so then I had to go try to find people to fit the product rather than finding the market you really want to serve and figuring out, a program and offer, like what would best serve them.
Sure.
So I always am an advocate for find your market, because you can always create a product, find a product, figure a product out. But at the end of the day, if you're not serving the people you really know you can support and serve, then you're going to fall short of your sales, of what you're doing too. So
I love that angle.
Get it right. Yeah. So in terms of like, what do you see are the biggest challenges and struggles right now in this time of like parents being home, homeschooling, time management, and being able to feel like they can do it all and hit their sales goals, through this chaos?
Sure. So the biggest thing that we've really been coaching on in my community, Jen, is priorities, right? Like we are in a space where we cannot do it all right now, right? Like you cannot homeschool your kids and work a 40-hour work week and do whatever it is you're trying to do. Like it's just not real life. And it's not why we started businesses, right? To run ragged. So for me, we've really been focusing on priority of money-making activity, which to me is human to human connection, right? Like we make money. So I have this giant slide that I put in a deck I was doing a training, that basically says like relationships equals clients, right? And we build relationships the fastest one-to-one, right? Like I love content marketing. We're doing this interview on a YouTube channel. I have a podcast. Like I love content marketing. But when you are trying to hit a sales goal, when you're trying to get cash fast, when you're trying to hit a goal, it has to be through human to human connection. Right? Because what you and I are doing right now, this is a long-term strategy, right? But short-term strategy is I want to go out into the world. I'm going to meet as many people as possible. I want to build relationships and I want to solve problems. And so we've really been focusing on the idea of what are those money-making activities in your business and prioritizing those. So that's been a really big one. And then I've also kind of coined the term in my community that like, you are your best paying client. And I'm sure you see this a lot, Jen, where my people are like, well, I do all the client work first. And then at the end of the day, there's no time for my business. There's no time for me to do the marketing activities I need to do, or, do the things I should be doing so my audience continues to grow. And so I literally train my students to like put themselves into the workflow. Like if you're using a project management software to manage your time or your day or any of those things, your to-do list, wherever you manage your stuff, you have to be on the to-do list.
Yeah.
Like you have to be, because if you're not, you will not do it. Right? Like what gets managed gets done. And we think, oh, I'll do that later. Oh, I'll do it later. And it'll be 5 or 6 days before you've ever like meaningfully gone out and started conversations with new people. So it's prioritization. And then like being honest with yourself about like, if it's not on the list, like if it's not on the calendar, if it's not on the project management software, it's probably not going to happen. So going ahead and just positioning yourself as you are a client. And I tell my students, you're your best paying client, right? Like you are the client who keeps on giving. So you have to make time for that. And like sometimes, go ahead.
I was going to say, just also, I think the biggest shift that I did for that too was really, like we say, take control of your calendar, but ultimately, I'm a little OCD. So I used to think, oh, I got to do everything every day. Like a little bit of everything every day creates so much burnout. And so when you can start to categorize, like, today's a coaching day, today's a sales call day, today's a follow-up day, today's a content day, and like really give yourself more focused work, you'll get more done.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was something I learned coming right out of the corporate world when I first quit my job. Like I would fill my calendar with all different things. So like I would transition from like a coaching call to a sales call to an interview like this. And I was like, my brain could not keep up. And I would end my days exhausted. And so, yeah, I do that the exact same thing, right? Where I know I coach on these days, and I know Wednesday, I lead a coaching call in somebody else's community, but primarily that's for connecting and interviews and interviewing people on my stuff. And like Mondays are primarily my content day. So I would agree with that. Really prioritizing your task and batching your tasks too.
Yeah. And I think, in our last conversation, you said something that really stood out to me too, was that you got to, I talk about structured learning. You got to be really protective of like what you're giving your time to and what you're consuming to grow skill set. And I know you mentioned like podcasts that talk all over the map about 100 different strategies. And then we feel obligated, like, oh, wait, they're saying do this. Now I got to do that. Now all of it's going on the calendar. I don't have time to do all that. I'm stressed out. So like, do you speak into like a structured learning as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, it's more like my big thing is pick your platform. Like there's 1,000,001 social media platforms. They are all incredible. There's 3.5 billion people on social. Like it's a fantastic tool, but yeah, like there's no reason to master LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and podcasts like all on the same day. Right? Like I very much am big on pick a platform and own that platform. So if Facebook is where you're most comfortable and that's where you enjoy connecting with people and you really like Facebook groups and that's fun for you, game on, right? I have students that are like, I really just like Facebook. I much prefer Instagram, game on, right? So I'm big on pick one platform and own it and really having that continuity and creating that reach and frequency that's important. And then also when it comes to just structured learning, I very similar to you tell my students to like turn down the noise. If something triggers you, if something gets you fired up, if something causes you stress, if something makes you feel less than, if something constantly makes you feel like you're not doing enough, like maybe it's time to like unsubscribe from that email list, tune out, like unsubscribe from that podcast, tune out from that YouTube channel, and really focus on a few people who have the business that you want to have the life you want to have the values that are important to you. And so I really have cut down on consumption, and I encourage my students to do the same. Because like I said, it leads to, there's so many different ways to be successful. But like you said early on, is a luxury and a blessing, but also creates this massive amount of overwhelm because there's no one right way. And so we keep, stopping and starting in all the different ways. And unfortunately wind up with a lot of hours and a lot of burnout and not a lot of results.
Yeah. A hodgepodge for sure. And so on that note of you work with,
I do.
new business owners. So like one of the biggest things I hear is how do I get into conversation with people if I'm just getting started? Nobody's engaging on my stuff. I'm not, getting a ton of DMs or people showing up in from the content I'm creating. Like, I don't want to be awkward. I don't want to like try to sell or try to get. So you have like a DMO or like a strategy for like getting consistent and confident in conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I teach is just kind of an online networking strategy. Shortest way to put it, we'll use Facebook as an example, Jen, because that's where you and I connected. Is find your Facebook groups where your clients hang out, your ideal client. If you're not super 100% sure on who that is yet, find groups that you enjoy. Find groups that are fun and uplifting and make you feel good and are like a networking event you would want to go back to. And so for me, I try really hard to start conversations with as many people as possible. But again, focused on building relationships. I'm not starting a conversation to sell something. I'm starting a conversation to build a relationship, which could lead to selling something. It could lead to a partnership. It could lead to a collaboration. It could lead to a guest text. I mean, there's a million different ways it could go. And so I think that's the biggest thing is people feel guilty because they feel like, oh, this person's going to think that like I'm being misleading. And I'm like, you're not. As long as you're not pitching anybody you don't have permission to pitch, you are genuinely just building a relationship. So my advice is always to go into Facebook groups and start conversations like just in your feed, right? So go into a group, sort by, we call it most recent posts, right? Because Facebook will, and Instagram actually will both default to like activity. I want the most recent post. And I just want to go in and start conversations. So say there's a post where somebody says, hey, I'd love some feedback on my power pitch, right? That happened in a community earlier today. Give that person feedback. You may not know anything about them. Like, hey, Jen, I really love power pitch number 2. I think it's really clear on, what you're trying to communicate there. Where do you plan to use your power pitch, right? Because I've used your name, I've given you feedback, and now I've asked you a question. And now I'm in a conversation, and it might be in the Facebook newsfeed, but my goal is if that conversation goes back 2 or 3 times to take it into a direct message and continue to build that relationship. And like I said, not all those DMs go somewhere. Not all of them become clients. Not all of them become collaborations or partnerships, but it just is me practicing talking about my business and asking good questions and learning from other people. So I teach a lot of that. We also do a lot of, I encourage my brand new students, Jen, to do as many like networking or coffee chats as possible. So you might call them networking chats, coffee chats, strategy connect, whatever you call it, but it's just a call where we get to know one another. And the reason I find that's really valuable is because it's the practice talking about yourself, right? I want you to practice saying, I'm a course creator, right? I am a strategist. I am a virtual assistant. Because right now, if you're brand new, it doesn't feel real, right? Like you're like, I'm trying to do this thing, but I don't feel like it at all. So I want you to practice taking on that identity of business owner and communicating about your business. And I want you practicing in a space that feels low risk, because it's just a networking chat, right? It's just a conversation. Because the more practice you get, the better you get. And not to mention the more people who know about your business, the more likely you are for your business to grow, right? You never know who that person you're talking to knows, right? They may not be a potential client, but maybe their sister is, or maybe their uncle is, or you never know who you're having a conversation with. So for my newbies, like that gets the confidence, that gets the practice, it gets the conversations, it builds the network. It gets you some, like we call them biz besties, right? Some friends to kind of link arms with. And so that's really kind of the beginner stuff I start to talk, is to just focus on building relationships, and then only making an invitation to a sales call once you have identified that this person does have the problem that you solve.
It's cool because, when you go in with intention to just serve, I always say serve, no place to get, like, how can you make an impact for the person that's in front of you today, and not worry about the people that aren't showing up, the followers that aren't there yet, the subscribers that aren't there yet. But ultimately, how are you going in and making an impact? And also knowing, like, when I connected with you, I immediately was like, oh, we should collaborate. So like, you just get a sense, like if someone comes to you and is like, oh my gosh, I just obsessively watched all your content in your group and I just love you so much. Like, that's someone that is saying, oh, I can serve her. Right. But if someone comes to you and is like, hey, oh, this is what I do. This is what I do. And like, we have this thing in common. And it's like reading the situation too. Because a lot of times people forget, I don't know, it's like they forget to think or freeze up, and it's like, I don't know how to have a conversation. It's like, what do you mean? Like, read the room, but I like,
Yes.
I use that same Facebook approach where there's so many people on Facebook positioning themselves as the authority, as the influencer. And there's so many people that are going into these groups asking questions, needing advice, wanting your opinion. And that's where it really, like, would you say that's where the majority of those conversations come from that fill your calendar?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is going into those groups and serving and answering questions. And we don't even do a lot of posting in groups anymore. It is like, because there's enough good stuff happening in the comments. Because it's not just the original commenter, right? Like the original
Yeah.
poster, it's everybody else, right? It's the visibility, it's the credibility, it's the authority when you're the person. Because unfortunately, a lot of people are, oh, I can help you with your power pitch. Here's the link to my calendar, book a call, right? And like, that never feels good. So it's
Yeah.
really easy to stand out and be the person who really looks to genuinely want to help or support or provide value with asking for nothing in return.
Yeah.
And that's almost always, the most attractive conversation to have.
I love it. And so when it comes to, so that's conversation, like getting in conversation, maximizing the threads is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to want to comment on the post, but actually getting into conversation within the threads is powerful. I agree. So what would you say now when it comes to sales goals? Here's my thing with goals. I actually just did a live about this, is that people set results-based goals. Like, I want a 5-figure month. I want a 6-figure, whatever, like, and make 6 figures a year. So what would you say is missing from that? Like, what gets to go along with, because just having a money goal, money is not a motivator for most people. So it's like, what else gets to elevate that so that it does get hit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we focus on a couple of things with my students. Like money obviously is the big one because we need it to live, right? It's a necessity. Most of my students are trying to get out of a full-time job. There's a dollar amount of which they have to replace for that to make sense for them and their families. So we focus on money, but I also like to focus on like number of people served. Like how many clients do you want to serve, right? Like how many new people do you want? How many lives are you going to change? Or are you going to bless today? So sometimes if the money doesn't make sense, you can work backwards to, I want 10 new people to enroll in my course because I want those 10 people to have this specific result. Like we recently set a goal, Jen, for us for 2021, is we want to help 200 women leave their full-time job and become full-time entrepreneurs. Like that's a goal for us, right? There's money attached to that. We've done the math, but for us, it's more fun to celebrate the lives changed than it is just the dollars collected. So that's definitely a big one. But also sometimes tracking smaller things. And this comes from coaching newbies, right, Jen? Like we're not always rolling around in the dough when we're brand new. It doesn't always come really naturally. So sometimes we focus just on the number of sales calls booked, right? How many sales calls do you want to book? How many networking and coffee chats do you want? How many new people do you want to connect with? How many sales invitations do you want to make? So oftentimes we're tracking activity and not just numbers, because that feels like it's more attainable, right? We can celebrate the small wins. If I booked 3 sales calls this week, even if they were all 3 no's or not a fit, we can measure progress in that way, because sometimes just measuring dollars doesn't always show how much progress and how much growth we've actually had.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And I think it's important that, you set those intentions, like also not just, the money and the impact, but also why is this important to you? Like creating that vision above the vision of impact is imperative. So, well, I love everything that you stand for and that you're about. And I really appreciate you coming on and shedding some light on the situation. Is there any final thoughts for people that are just maybe, feeling in a rut right now or feeling like what they're up to isn't really significant in the grand scheme of what's going on?
Sure.
What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to kind of answer the part about like when it feels like what we're doing right now isn't significant. But I would argue that everything that we do has significance, right? Like I tell my students all the time, we are all changing lives in some capacity. And like, we might not be doctors. I'm not a doctor. Like I'm not saving lives in that way. But if I can give one woman the gift of picking her kid up from school, like I am changing a life, right? If if your course is meant to serve someone in some way. So to me, it's like, stop comparing your significance to someone else's. Because it is all significant, like in some way, shape, or form. As human beings, like we are doing significant things. Even if your significant thing is, I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm here with my kids all of the time, and that feels insignificant to you right now because there's all these people, starting businesses. Like it is significant. It's significant to your family. It's significant to your babies, right? Like, so I think instead of looking for external significance, we really need to think like big picture, that sort of stuff. So I do still a lot of students that were like, I feel really bad. Like there's a lot of people that are struggling right now. And I'm like, but it does not help us to struggle with them, right? Like that does not serve you or your people or your family in any way. Cause I do like have some students that are having really great years and they're like, I just almost feel bad to celebrate it because so many other people aren't. And so, I don't think we live in a world where there's only a certain amount of abundance for each individual person, right? Like, I don't think that your abundance is taking away from someone else's. Right. And so for me, it's really focusing on the impact that you're making in the world and the lives that you get to serve. And just like you said, being really grateful and blessed for that opportunity. And then if you are feeling in a rut and you are feeling stuck, I mirror Jen exactly on this. Go serve somebody today. Like, I don't care if it's go get on a free call with somebody, like go on Facebook and post like, I want to coach one person, or I want to help one person, or I want to, do one thing for one person, like right now, and do that, right? Like you will instantly feel better. You will instantly feel reconnected to why you started. So I will often tell my students that get really frustrated. And I'm like, go help somebody for free today. Just go help somebody. And you almost always feel better when you're done. Almost always.
You never know what door that's going to open either. That could lead to something really different. And I love that. And I just think that, in this time, like, you and I, like we do something similarly, but it's like not looking at people as competition, but looking at them as collaborators, as supporters, as fire starters, and how together, like, we can create a bigger impact and support each other's communities in a whole new way, and not have any scarcity around that. I think it's important that we don't have scarcity, because at the end of the day, people are either going to love you or they're not, like, or they're going to be for you or they're not. And so why hold back? Why hold back from serving bigger to connect with other people? So Ryann, thank you so much. Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of fun places for us to hang out, Jen. So I have a Facebook community. I do work primarily with women. So it is the Ambitious Women Entrepreneurs Mastering Sales Skills community. I can also be found on, this is what I was really hoping wouldn't happen. This is Davis.
Good. This is what we're in the middle of right now.
This is what we're doing, right? So Ambitious Women Entrepreneurs Mastering Sales Skills is my Facebook community. My podcast is the Uncensored Sales Podcast with Ryann Dowdy. And those are the two places where we should connect.
I will put those links in the description below. Thank you all so much for being here. And Ryann, I appreciate you so much. Blessings to you, your community, all you're doing. And if there's anything I can do to further support, I am happy to do so.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jen. I appreciate it.
See you guys later.